Yeah, because Joe can't find. Oh, Joe found the record button. After 10 minutes, Joe found the record button. People, welcome to Bonehead Weekly. Joe's an idiot.
That's the best intro we've had in a long time.
Isn't it, though?
Hey, the new Batman trailer, I'm going to spring this on you because I know this is about Nick Cage, and Nick Cage is God. But you guys watched the new Batman trailer?
I have.
I did.
Okay, so I've only watched it small, and I think it was the leaked one, so I didn't get a very good. But have you guys seen the memes of the new Penguin?
No, no.
All right, so did you see the Penguin?
I actually had to go and see stills of Colin Farrell as the Penguin. Yeah.
So he doesn't look like Colin Farrell, correct?
No, he does not.
He looks more like me.
So, right. Google that. So that leads me to my joke. Do you guys know the character actor Richard Kind?
Yes.
Oh my God, he looks like Richard Kind.
Those have been the memes. So they put up him as the Penguin and Richard Kind going, they hired a sex symbol and did him up as Richard Kind when they could have just hired Richard Kind.
Well, no, it would have messed with continuity because Richard Kind played the mayor in Gotham.
That's true.
Nerd. Wow.
It's true. You wouldn't want people going, why is the mayor the Penguin? Unless you're watching the 1960s Batman, in which case I think that's actually an episode.
There's the Penguin.
Yeah.
But she's the sheriff.
She said she was the sheriff, and she was, too.
And we could never talk about Squidbillies ever again now.
Oh, no, they're continuing on. I mean, they've greenlit.
Who's going to be the voice of early Kyler?
In all fairness, what they ought to do...
Joe, did something happen?
You all missed it? Unknown Henson got fired.
Yeah, I know he got fired, but they've greenlit another season. They're going to keep going.
And by the way, I didn't know it was still on.
Really? It got renewed for a 17th season. I read
some of his posts back. They canceled my cartoon show, but they fired me for my cartoon show. Yeah, Google it about Unknown Henson.
Okay.
When we're done here.
Honestly, I'm sure can I just say, Joe, James, before you go, I'm just going to state this. I'm sure the reason he was fired, fairly obvious.
Well, actually, to be honest,
he had some derogatory terms for Dolly Parton and Black Lives Matter.
But in all fairness, his biggest crime was going after Dolly Parton, because nobody hates Dolly Parton. We've interviewed people on this show before that worked with Dolly Parton, and what did they say, Joe?
They loved her breasts.
That's not what they said at all. They said she was one of the most authentic people.
Yeah, they never met. Yeah, we've talked to people who've talked to Dolly, and they love her. Yes, that's true.
So you just don't go after. You can go after Joe Louis all you want. Why didn't Unknown Henson attack Joe Louis?
I needed the prestige.
That's true. Oh my God, that would have been the best thing that ever happened to Bonehead.
It would have been the best thing that ever happened to Bonehead. Cartoon actor and vampire goth, blah, blah, blah. Unknown Henson says Bonehead is a bunch of boneheads. Film at 11.
All right.
You're eating this then. I just wanted to start with something a little more, I mean.
Yeah, that's crazy. Now I'm not going to be able to get it out of my head. But
he does look a lot. I wouldn't have thought of it. Because I hadn't seen, honestly, I couldn't see the video, so I didn't see the joke. I've not rewatched it, or the Penguin, or whoever. I don't shit.
It's so fast, you can't make any. I didn't know that was Colin Farrell or the Penguin. It was just some dude.
But he's not the villain in this one, right? It's the
Riddler. It's the Riddler.
It's Devin and the Riddler with the crow. That's what the trailer looked like.
The owl. The owl. Yeah, but it's the Court of Owls.
Court of Owls. Yeah, we don't.
No, it looked like
honestly, I think it's
a lot like the crow.
It did actually. Have you seen those memes where they do shot by shot comparisons? Actually, it's not to the crow. Where they do shot by shot to the Dark Knight.
Dark Knight has a lot of shots in it from the crow.
And it's all from the crow.
Yeah,
I saw that and I was like, oh my God.
It does. Yeah. All right, gentlemen, Chad's right. We should get on to Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, so that's our episode. So if you listen
to by the way, the fact that he said that's our episode, well, we're done for the evening.
Well, if you listen to earlier in the week, if you listen to Good Movie Monday, we did a fun size edition of our least favorite Nicolas Cage movies, but that was really a tie-in to our favorite Nicolas Cage films because we are all three huge fan of Nicolas Cage.
Well, I'm a pretty big fan.
Okay, well, me and James are huge fans. Have been.
I'm a huge fan of chocolate chip cookies. I'm a pretty big fan of Nicolas Cage.
I don't know how long James has been. I mean, honestly, leaving Las Vegas, it just started there. Like as soon as I saw Nicolas Cage and leaving
Las Vegas did it for you.
Yeah, honestly,
don't get me wrong. You won an Oscar. He's great, but
it was great. I watched that movie.
Were you? 17.
No, it was 1995 or 96. I would have been 14 or 15.
And you were watching Leaving Las Vegas?
Oh man, I watched Russ Meyer.
He had a double feature. He watched that and crashed.
Dude, when I was 13, I watched it.
And not the fun Crash.
No, not the fun one. No, we're talking about Cronenberg's Crash.
Yeah, no. When I was 13, I watched every single Russ Meyer film. Did you? I
love those Vixens.
Oh God, their movies are terrible. But no, James, when did your love of Nicolas Cage start?
Oh man, I think, in all honesty, okay, so this is a backstory nobody needs to know. But when my father was much younger, he looked somewhat like Nicolas Cage. Matter of fact, my mother had a photo.
He never had the hair for it, did he?
No, but he did show us that picture, and he did look a little like Nick Cage.
He was a little Nick Cagey. But anyway, so probably, I mean, when I was 12 or 13, my mom was watching Nick Cage films because your father looked like that when he was young. Whereas my wife can only point to John Lovett's films and be like, your father never looked that good.
FYI, your son's starting to look a lot like you.
He never stopped looking like him.
He doesn't look as much like him as everyone says he does to me, but now he is starting to look a lot like him.
Well, I mean, I think it's Phil. I think Phil has paid for plastic surgery. I know nobody's going to get that joke, but no. Phil, I'm waiting for them checks. Anyway.
Go ahead.
But anyway, so no, I mean, Nick Cage, literally Raising Arizona, all that stuff.
Raising Arizona would be it for me.
I didn't see Raising Arizona until after leaving Las Vegas.
That's funny. I saw it in the 80s, probably around when it came out.
Yeah, I was about to say, so I would have been really young when I first saw Nick Cage. And then as I grew up and I wanted more insanity in my life, there's a Nick Cage film for every season and every reason. If you want a sappy family film, you can find one. You want an animated film that's still phenomenal, there's those too. So whatever the season, there is a Cage for all seasons.
And his choice of films goes crazy because I mean, he took. And by the way, there is that Oscar curse of you win an Oscar, and a lot of the times your career kind of goes downhill after you win that Oscar. He won Leaving Las Vegas, a hugely dramatic role about a man drinking himself to death. And then what does he do? He becomes an action film star, for God's sakes. No one would have seen that coming.
Yeah.
He suddenly became
up with The Rock?
It was, The Rock, then Con Air, and then Face Off.
Oh, I thought Face Off came before Con Air.
Maybe it did. I might have that confused.
It doesn't matter, but those are three. I know Michael Bay, I saw him in an interview, take full credit for making him an action star.
Well, I was going to say, and the thing about that
by the way, Michael Bay said, it's all me. I made him an action star.
Well, the thing about that is Nick Cage is an American Sean Connery. And let me put that in context. Sean Connery took tons of roles. For instance, Highlander. Okay, Sean, we want you to play this Spanish sword fighter. Can you give us an example accent? And he just did his own voice. Nick Cage has literally played somebody from the South, from the North, somebody from the Moon, and every time it's like, okay, let's do this. It doesn't matter. It's the same.
He has the accent in the first Ghost Rider that he mysteriously loses for Ghost Rider 2.
Right.
Well, by the way, I don't know if you know this, but Sean Connery didn't change a lot of stuff between Highlander 1 and Highlander 2.
Since we're talking about him doing his roles, I do want to. There is a few quotes from him. When I was doing my research, there's a great New York Times article from 2019 by David Marchese where he interviewed Nick Cage, and he talked about choosing roles. And Joe, you're going to like this quote. I'm already going to tell you, you're going to love this quote.
Okay, thank you. Jed Jennings gave me my career. Thank you, Michael.
When he's talking about choosing roles, he came up with this old movie. There's this old sci-fi movie called Quartermass in the Pit.
Yep.
In the movie, someone says to Professor Quartermass, "Do you ever find your early career catching up with you?" And he says, "I never had a career, only work. I feel like that's where I'm at now. I've never had a career, only work. I'm just going to keep working." And he talks about actors that inspired him. He's talking about these golden age heroes. Those guys all did like 150 movies. I also want to argue with the concept of supply and demand. I grew up in the 70s watching Rock Hudson on McMillan and Wife, Dennis Weaver in McCloud, Charles Bronson in The Movie of the Week, Peter Falk in Columbo. I began to develop a relationship with these characters and these actors. The more I saw them, the more I wanted to see them. And by design, with video on demand, I felt that I made more movies. Not only was it good for me financially, people would be able to tune in at home and go, "What's the next movie that Nick made?" They'd have a large selection. So I'm not worried about too much supply and not enough demand. I'm just trying to get back to a feeling that I enjoyed as a child on my little Zenith television in the 70s.
Yeah.
Can I throw out another quote that I found engaging?
You go ahead.
Ahem. I am not a demon. I'm a lizard, a shark, a heat-seeking panther. I want to be Bob Denver on acid playing the accordion. Look it up. That's an actual quote. And by the way, I never read that quote till this evening, and I knew I was going to bring it up during this. And I love Nick Cage even more than I did before I read that quote.
Did you know
all the insanity of Charlie Sheen without the misogyny?
Did you know he came up with his own acting style?
No.
It's called Nouveau Shamanic. This is what he says about acting. Laurence Olivier said, "What is acting but lying? And what is good lying but convincing lying? I don't want to look at acting that way. Why not experiment? Western kabuki to me was, let's go all the way out. Nouveau Shamanic is nothing other than trying to augment your imagination to get to the performance without feeling like you're faking it." This author, Brian Bates, wrote a book called The Way of Weird, and he put forth the notion that actors hailed from the old shamans. So I was kind of making a statement about that. I added nouveau to be fancy.
Well, nouveau makes it fancy?
Apparently.
I want to do one more quote because Chad's mentioned some of the people that he watched. I saw this quote and I was like, oh, now that he's doing a lot more horror films, I found this interesting. Quote, "I'm an enormous admirer of Christopher Lee. He's somebody, along with Vincent Price, who I celebrate. And I wanted my movies to show that celebration and that honoring of those great film stars that were unafraid to go into horror and grand guignol and the macabre."
Isn't it guignol?
I don't know.
The article that I pulled from, several articles I pulled from, he does mention Vincent Price, which is fitting for Nicolas Cage.
Yeah, I think.
And now I want nothing more than Vincent Price to remake Nick Cage to remake every Vincent Price. We need another House on a Hill.
Oh my God, I would love Nicolas Cage to do a series of Poe films.
I would love to see Nicolas Cage in The Raven.
Oh,
and not the actual adaptation, the Roger Corman version.
Yes.
Who would play the wizard against him, Chad?
Ooh, man.
So Vincent, for those that don't know, Vincent Price played the one wizard, and the dueling wizard was Boris Karloff.
Could we do Christopher Walken?
I was about to say Christopher Walken is who comes to mind. I mean, I would pay to see that
because I think they would both do it.
You know who I was thinking?
Who?
Ian McKellen.
Oh my God! Yeah, if you could
slum it,
sure.
You think you could slum it?
Even though that's kind of on the nose, I know he. Oh my God, Joe, help! Lord of the Rings.
What about it?
I forgot his role.
He is
Gandalf.
Ian McKellen is Gandalf.
Jesus Christ.
And then there's Sauron, who does not have a speaking part but kind of does, and Saruman, which gets confusing. And then Tolkien gives every character 5 names.
5 names, which is only second to War and Peace, where some characters have up to 20. By the way, who would be the middle ground? Peter Lorre plays the back and forth kind of the middleman between them. I think it should be. I'm
telling you right now, I'm going either Brad Dourif or Jeffrey Combs.
Oh, see, I was thinking
those are good.
John Rhys Davies, but I agree with you. Either of those would work.
Actually, and I like Jeffrey Combs, but I think he already did it a little bit. I think it should be Brad Dourif.
You know who I would like? I mean, those are two excellent choices, Joe.
Who?
Luis Guzman.
That's pretty good.
Actually,
funnier.
Count of Monte Cristo. I'll give it to you,
dude.
Yes.
Luis Guzman. This is one of I talked to our listeners. I'll talk to these two when we did our character actors episode. That was my biggest regret is I forgot. Other than Oliver Platt, Luis Guzman is my favorite character actor.
Oliver Platt may be good in that role.
Oh yeah,
that too. I was going to say him, but Luis Guzman, I think. Yeah, no, but Luis Guzman, if you're listening, you're not listening. You're one of my favorite actors.
If you are,
we should do a 3-picture deal where we write them. We won't even direct them. We'll produce and write them. We'll find some batshit crazy young kid to direct them with a vision, right? And try to keep him on budget or her on budget.
Can't we just get Panos, who did Mandy? Because I want to see more from him, and I'd love to see him do a Poe one.
It takes so long for him to make a movie, though.
I don't care.
Yeah.
I'll wait. I got time.
But back on Nicolas Cage, I do got to mention one other thing.
All we need is the $20 million to do 3 pictures.
But back on Nicolas Cage, I do got to mention something that I found in investigating. So we're doing an episode on Nicolas Cage. Guys, there are at least 8 podcasts dedicated to only Nicolas Cage.
How do you do that?
I don't know, but each one is covering a different aspect of Nicolas Cage. The most popular one, I believe, is Cage's Kiss. By the way, most of those podcasts have more ratings and likes than ours.
Well, I was about to say, you know what's going to piss us off? And I was about to say is I bet all of them are more popular than Bonehead Weekly.
This is true. They are.
But by the way, and real quick, I guess another thing we should throw out here before we get to our list.
Yeah.
One last quote from him is, "How do you rebel in a family of rebels?" So if you don't know, Nicolas Cage's real last name isn't Cage. It's Costanza. He's related to George Costanza.
Or another C word.
Sure, Coppola, but whatever. I like George Costanza.
He's a Coppola. He's a Coppola. For you people who don't know, he's a Coppola. And when you think, well, there's just Francis, yes, that family. That Francis is his uncle.
Yeah, and then, even though he did have Coppola, and, granted, Coppola may have opened doors for him.
It had to have.
Yeah, but
it opens doors of how the industry works.
Yeah, it's all nihilistic, narcissist.
Nihilistic?
Anyway, nihilistic. That's why I said
he believes in nothing.
No, I doesn't mean to say nihilistic. Anyway. No, he actually grew outside. He grew up outside of Beverly Hills. His dad was a professor at Long Beach State College, I believe is what it was. They lived middle class, or so he claims, and he lived across the road from a Porsche dealership. And he said that, he never liked that life. He would always look forward to the summers when he went to go stay with his Uncle Francis.
Nepotism was the word you were looking for, though.
Yeah, they never had fancy cars. They never had anything. So when he went to this Uncle Francis's on the summers, that's what the life that he wanted. So he did mention the fact that did you know he lost a role to, I believe it was A Streetcar Named Desire. Do you know who he lost the role to?
No.
John Turteltaub.
Oh, the director. They were friends in high school, right?
Yeah, and he lost out to him.
By the way, I want to say real quick, we were talking about that movie. I just came into my head. Somebody needs to do a movie with him and Johnny Depp.
Him and Johnny Depp are best friends, or close friends. Yeah.
I want them to do because I was saying about it. They would be great dueling wizards.
He was close friends with Jim Carrey for years as well, and they ended up falling out, right?
Yeah, because of Kick-Ass too, if I'm not mistaken.
I don't.
Or I might be wrong, but no. He takes credit for getting Johnny Depp into acting. So Johnny Depp was staying on his couch in his apartment, and he was mostly focused on music. And Nicolas Cage, this is according to Nick Cage. Nick Cage convinced him, "Man, you should try acting." And Johnny Depp was against it. He's like, "No, I'm about my music." And Nick Cage is like, "No, you should really do acting." And he actually convinced him, took him to his first audition, which was Nightmare on Elm Street.
I know it's an obscure film, so if you've never seen it,
No,
buy
but
Ron's book.
think of all the schmucks in Hollywood or LA for 40, 50, 60, 70 years trying to get a break, and some good-looking asshole is laying on some other good-looking asshole's couch, and the one good-looking asshole says, why don't you go on audition? And then he ends up in one of the most monumental horror films of the next 30 to 40 years.
Yeah, and I think Nick Cage, like I think he said Johnny Depp was selling pens before he, like, actual handwriting pens. And
you guys agree with me, right?
Oh no, completely agree with you.
There's a great Johnny Depp story, and we should do one of these about Johnny Depp later because I think we all three love Johnny Depp as well.
And honestly, this is what I'll say about Johnny. I think there are 3 leading male actors who are great character actors.
Yes.
Johnny Depp.
Agreed.
Nick Cage. Brad Pitt.
Man, yeah, close. I tell you, Leo's a good actor. I don't know.
Leonardo DiCaprio is a good one, yeah.
But
I think to Chad's point, Chad said character actor. I think Brad Pitt has become a character actor.
He has. But, honestly, if you
I don't think Leo is.
And we really got to get on Nick Cage. But if you think about 7 Monkeys or 12 Monkeys.
7 Monkeys is a prequel.
That's when they cut the budget.
Yeah. 7 Monkeys is a prequel. And then at the end of it, they'd be like, where should we put these other 5 monkeys? We cut $1 million
out of the budget. We're all out of monkeys.
Where should we put these 5 other monkeys? Well, put them with them other 7.
That's an interesting thing, though. Yeah, because I love George Clooney. You know this. I'm a huge George Clooney fan.
As am I.
George Clooney is not a character. He's a movie star.
No, he is a movie star. He is right up. He is the Clark Gable.
He's completely watchable, and when he's on the screen, that's what you're looking at.
Yeah, he's the Clark Gable, Cary Grant of this generation.
Right, I agree. I totally agree with that. Yeah, yep, absolutely. Tom Hanks is Whistle Pig. Why can't I think of Jimmy Stewart's? And why did I say Whistle Pig?
I don't know.
By the way, you just reminded me of my father more than I'm comfortable with.
I know, because my dad said it the other day, and my son was walking around going, I'm not a whistle pig. Yeah, you are.
Anyway. All right. So we've been talking 20 minutes. Should we go into
first?
James, since I'll let you go first, then I'll go second.
I'm gonna start with one that I don't think a lot of people have seen.
And by the way, I want to point out that I talked to Joe about this earlier. Sorry, James. I didn't pick my 2 favorite Nicolas Cage. Well, 2 of my favorite Nicolas Cage performances because I figured Joe was going to bring up one, and I figured you were going to bring up the other. So if you all don't, I'll be very disappointed. So go ahead.
Well, I want to start with literally. It's to be honest, as big a Nick Cage fan as I am, it's one that was.
Don't be honest. Did you have to start the sentence with "to be honest"?
I'm sorry to forge my story to tell my story forged on the anvil of truthfulness. Anyway, hey, we all got.
Joe and I, by the way, for our podcast listeners, Joe and I both have our hands on our foreheads.
Double face palm score. Anyway,
Dad's drinking and has been. I wasn't, but.
Why not start?
Joe's getting out the Basil Hayden.
This is
By the way, if there's a drinking game for Bonehead Weekly, it should be whenever Joe mentions Basil Hayden.
Wish they would give me some money every time I mention Basil, or at least Basil Hayden. Basil Hayden gave me Basil Hayden. I'd work for Basil Hayden.
By the way, I just want to. In my mind, I want them to actually be listening to this and very snootily say every time, "It's not Basil, it's Basil."
Basil Hayden.
Yeah, if you would pronounce it correctly.
I grew up in Hayden.
Anyway.
To quote Eddie Izzard, because there's a fucking I in it.
Anyway, I want to talk about one that doesn't get much attention and was considered an overlooked movie that
I don't believe any of this. You haven't talked about shit.
Oh, man.
A huge following. It came out in 1992, and it actually has a huge place in weird history because it was the first motion picture to star Dwight Yoakam.
Oh, yeah, it's a good one.
Red
Rock West.
Nick Cage, Laura Flynn Boyle, J.T. Walsh, Dennis Hopper, all at the height of their crazy early 90s insanity.
Oh, and that's directed by the guy that also directed The Last Seduction. I can't remember his name. Linda Fiorentino, Chad? Is that her name?
Yeah, Linda Fiorentino. From,
directed by John Dahl.
John Dahl. John Dahl. John Dahl also went on to direct a movie that people probably remember in both Joyride with the CB.
Yep.
But he also Joe, correct me if I'm wrong, but he also is well known for directing many episodes of Dexter.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. He directed Dexter. God, we should get John Dahl on the show.
Mm-hmm.
And say, you related to that Rawld?
4 people just went,
I know.
And talk about how that show ended.
Where'd that giant peach go?
Poorly.
It's over there.
It's over there. You can't miss that something.
It's with me. Anyway, Nick Cage.
Drink. It's just funny.
Nick Cage, Laura Flynn Boyle, the late great J.T. Walsh character.
Maybe the best character actor of all time.
Hold on, I got my hat off. So okay, my hat's on my chest for J.T. Walsh.
Yeah, he may be the best character actor of all time. He's definitely. I'll tell you, he's the most interesting character actor of all time.
Oh man, isn't he though?
Dennis Hopper is in this as well. And this is actually I went back and forth on this because Nick Cage plays this one relatively subdued.
Yep.
But Nick Cage he's a Marine that's out of the military. He's injured. He gets a job working on an oil rig. He's having to live in his car. And the oil rig actually ends up not hiring him because he won't lie about an injury. So he would be a liability if something happened to him and all this stuff. And he basically just goes in this dive bar in this little town. And the somebody at the bar mistakes him as Lyle from Dallas. Turns out Lyle from Dallas is an assassin. A hitman. You pay him, he'll kill somebody. And he says, here's half the money. I'll give you the other half when you finish the job. And he wants him to kill his wife. Now Nick Cage is down on his luck as it plays the actor. The character's name is Michael. And thinks, I'll take this money. I'll warn her. And then I'll get out of town. And my life will improve. Well, it's not a short film. It doesn't go that well. He ends up going to warn her at one point. She said, well, I'll pay you even more if you'll kill him. And it goes back and forth. And it's got a little bit, it was considered a neo-noir. But if you've never heard of Red Rock West, one of the reasons is the studio went, we don't know what this is. It's neo-noir, but it doesn't fit comfortably in any genre. And they didn't know how to market it. Go ahead, Joe.
Was it released on HBO?
I
watched it on HBO, and I want to believe it was released on HBO. But you like The Night Flyer? If anybody remembers the Stephen King film, The Night Flyer, that was also released on HBO.
See, Stephen King episode 2 or 3.
I don't know the full details on that, Joe. I know the American rights to sell. So it was made on a $7 million budget, and they sold the rights for American distribution for $2.5 million. And I forget what company bought them. I want to say something like TriStar Columbia, something. Anyway, one of those. And then the international rights went to a company. I don't remember the name of it. But basically, when it came out, what views it did get, I think they may have done a very limited theatrical, but you're right. This was not The Rock. It did not get wide views.
Yeah, I saw it on HBO.
Tons of reviewers, though, said that this was going to be a film that people slept on and regretted. And matter of fact, at the end of 1992, the top 10 rankings, this film appeared on a lot of them. Peter Travers for Rolling Stone said it was the 7th best film of the year. Gene Siskel said it was the 9th. Peter Rainer of the Los Angeles Times put it as the 10th. And if you are a fan of country music, one of my favorite Dwight Yoakam songs, 1,000 Miles from Nowhere, was written specifically for this movie. I don't want to give the end of the movie away. You should watch it. But at the end of the movie, this is what plays when the plot resolves. And Dwight Yoakam does have a cameo in it. He is the truck driver He's
the truck driver, yeah.
And so if you've never seen Red Rock West, even if you're on the fence about Nick Cage, even if you hate Nick Cage, you are going to see Dennis Hopper and Cage and Laura Flynn Boyle and J.T. Walsh all play off of each other, and it is very well done. Yes, Chad.
Okay. So it did have a limited release in the U.S. The budget was $8 million. Anybody want to guess what the opening weekend in the U.S. was?
$25,000.
James?
$1,200.
$11,562.
That's big.
And by the way, at the preview, none of the producers showed up.
Yeah.
And this is not a bad. I'm not bad mouthing James's pick. Red Walk West should be watched.
Yeah, I was gonna say
it doesn't hop. It's a character study.
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, and again, as the studio heads even put in the time, they didn't know how to market it. They didn't know it because it wasn't an action film, but it's not quite Hitchcockian. As Joe says, it's a character study, and it's really
a character
hard.
Study. It doesn't just bounce around. There's not a ton of action. It's not. I'm trying to think of a movie to compare it to. There's not much other than other John Dahl films.
Yeah, no.
Actually, John Dahl films. Actually, that's one of the least actiony. I bet The Last Seduction has more twists and turns than that one.
But you really should. You really should check it out because it is a great. It does have. It begins very North by Northwest-ish in that he is mistaken and rides it. Though, in I guess North by Northwest, he doesn't mean to ride it. It's just mistaken, and he doesn't know how to fix it.
No, they didn't give me a chaser. Sorry. Just North by Northwest is one of the most quotable movies of all time,
isn't it?
But for Nick Cage films, this is one of his highest ranked films on Rotten Tomato. It has a 95% positive score on Rotten Tomato.
Wow, that high?
I would be. It's good. It's not that good.
Yeah, damn, 95%.
I haven't seen it in 20 years.
Go back and rewatch it. It's pretty solid. By the way, I should say I don't get kickback for this, but Peacock, which is NBC Universal's streaming, the free account. Because I was trying to find a place to rewatch this, and it was really hard because it's not available on DVD in Region 1. You can get it in Region 2, but I don't have a Region 2 player. That being said, Peacock has it for free. It's one of their free selections. If you just sign up, all you have to do is give your email. You can watch Red Rock West for free. So if you've never seen it, hey, it ain't going to cost you nothing. And you get to see Dennis Hopper as an assassin.
Yep.
Cool.
All right. Chad.
All right. So when I picked my three, like I said, I didn't pick two of them because I figured
you should
would grab, but I wanted to pick one. I wanted to pick one that was, Nick Cage, kind of the bizarre, like off kilter role. Then there was the serious, just showing how great his range is, and then the goofy Nick Cage. So I'm going to start off with the quirky role, and I got to go with Adaptation, where he played Charlie and Donald Kaufman. Directed by Spike Jonze, written by Charlie Kaufman, based on, I'm doing air quotes for our audio listeners, based on a book by Susan Orlean.
Which was unadaptable.
It was unadaptable.
That's the plot to the film, more or less. He's trying to adapt it, and he writes himself into that.
And it is a bizarre premise. So, Charlie Kaufman was hired to write a book about this book about this orchid hunt, this hunt for this orchid, written by a book by Susan Orlean. And he somehow managed, in Charlie Kaufman's amazing mind, turned it into a movie about him and his imaginary twin brother trying to adapt this story into a movie and turned it into this crazy series of events. So Nicolas Cage plays dual roles in this. It is an amazing watch.
Is that his last best performance?
Oh no, I don't know,
man.
That.
He's pretty good.
Yeah, there's another one that I'm going to mention that's after. I believe it's after that. I need to check the dates. An article from the AV Club from 2002, where Nicolas Cage was talking about getting ready for this role. Access to Charlie definitely helped me shape my character. Talking about Charlie Kaufman, the writer. I think there are two Charlies. There's the biological Charlie we have here, and then there's the surrealistic Charlie. I should not have drank before I said big words, which is on the paper and in the movie.
Tee-hee.
Spike and I together decided that we wanted to use the biological Charlie as a resource in terms of interviews and examining his characteristics and the way he speaks, the way he thinks. It was very exciting for me to listen to him. He's a very passionate guy. So I sort of made a mental sketch from that, but I didn't lock myself into it. With you on in regards to Spike Jonze, with him on the set, we'd go through different, and that's what he mainly focuses on. Is he didn't really go with actually Charlie Kaufman. He didn't do what Charlie Kaufman. Him and Spike Jonze worked on the role of determining how he should deliver this character, and one of the things that that Nicolas Cage likes to do is he likes to kind of home in on a certain performance. Like, for example, with Raising Arizona. Do either one of you know what his inspiration for raising the character in Raising Arizona was?
Do not.
James?
No idea.
Woody Woodpecker.
Yeah, well, the Woody Woodpecker, he has the tattoo on his arm.
Yeah, and and that was part of the thing. He used that Woody Woodpecker. That's how he developed his performance. So him and Spike worked really closely to develop not just one, but two individual characters. And just watching him bounce off of himself was insane. And I believe, Nicolas Cage's either brother or cousin was standing in for the role. Whenever it was switched, it would be Nicolas Cage's brother who he was talking to, just so he could get like a kind of a mirror image of what he would be talking to. If you haven't seen this movie, watch it. It is truly bizarre, but man, is it good.
I was going to say, there's a scene in it that literally, so when I saw the film, I saw it with a couple of friends of mine who live in Michigan, and Joe will know who those people are. But anyway, that being said, I saw it, and there's a scene in the film where he's trying to write, and he's negotiating with himself.
Right.
And he's doing that. Okay, if I write a paragraph, I'll let myself have a bagel. No, you don't, or a muffin. No, you don't need a muffin. You're too fat. You don't need a. But if I write, and he goes back and forth, and literally, the person that I was with turned over to me and be like, "This is like watching you on a screen." And I was like, "I'm sorry."
James, it's funny that you say that. Joe, I don't know if you remember this at all. You probably don't. Me and Joe
saw it in the theater together.
Me and Joe saw this in the theater together. And if you haven't seen the movie, it opens up in black. And Nicolas Cage as Charlie Kaufman is literally going through a thought process in his head. And it just gets more and more broken. And he speaks fast, rapid fire, rapid fire. And Joe looked at me and said, "That is how you think, isn't it?" That is me to a T every day of my life.
It's actually how it's probably more you, but I see versions of it for you. I mean, you're my two best friends, for both of you. And I always wonder, because people love that movie, and I do not have an attachment to it whatsoever, other than the appreciation of the amazing storytelling. Actually, you know what? Of the amazing acting and writing. But I don't have an attachment to it like everyone else does.
Who won the best supporting actor for that? What's that? Why am I blanking on his name?
Chris Cooper didn't win for that. He won for American Beauty.
Oh, he was nominated for it. I'm sorry, he's nominated.
Yeah, Chris Cooper's fantastic in it.
Mm-hmm. Meryl
Streep. And then I love the fact of the part of the movie where his brother is the one who's clearly writing the script from this point to the orchid. Right?
Exactly.
It starts becoming a murder and a mystery, and it's clearly his brother.
Yeah.
Sorry, I enjoy, but I don't have an attachment to it. It's not something I can go back to.
I think that's why I have
about being John Malkovich.
I think that's why I have the attachment that I do, because literally I see myself in the role. It's Nicolas Cage doing me, and my whole thought process is constant. And I watch that sometimes, and sometimes it's honestly helped me, because my brain gets like that, where I'm trying to focus on a project and then I just spiral out of control, and I come and think about that movie and it snaps me right back. And I'm like, okay, I need to quit being Charlie Kaufman for a minute, even though I know that may not be how Charlie Kaufman thinks, but
it's how movie Charlie Kaufman thinks.
It's how movie
That's
Charlie
the only
Kaufman.
one I've got to meet.
Exactly. And if it doesn't happen in a movie, it's not true. Joe, go.
I've changed mine around listening to you all.
I was going to say, this has made me change mine. The next one. But anyway, go ahead.
And I'm going to go ahead and steal this one, even though I told Chad it wasn't on my list. I'm going to put it on my list because I said it earlier, and you just talked about it. Raising Arizona introduced me to Nicolas Cage, and I thought he was amazing from that point on. No one else. Did you know that Kevin Costner auditioned for that role 3 times?
No.
3 times. So that means he was pretty damn close that the Coens were close to going with Kevin Costner.
That would have been a completely different movie.
It's a different movie, right? Kevin Costner's not a bad actor.
No, he's not.
A different movie.
That would have been Kevin Costner in A Perfect World, the movie A Perfect World, in Raising Arizona.
That's very It's very intelligent of you. Oh my God, we've been very complimentary of one another.
Why do you sound shocked that wasn't intelligent?
See, I took a compliment. Fucked it up.
Hey, Chad. That was really intelligent. Can you please take both your fingers out of one nostril? I mean, it's impressive. It's impressive. But...
This is how much 4 roses I have left. So the intelligence is going right out the window.
It's also the movie that Matthew McConaughey says is the one he's watched the most times in his life. Which
that does not surprise
makes complete sense to me, right?
It does,
yeah. Would watch Raising Arizona. It came out in 1987. I'm going to talk about just a couple of things. I think most people have seen Raising Arizona. Raising Arizona is a movie that, and here's the second reason. I was sitting here thinking, listening to you all and thinking about, well, yeah, I shouldn't pick it because I always pick the popular ones, and I don't mean to, but it's just what I like, and maybe it's just a more mainstream taste. But
Joe Lewis,
we'll shit on you when you pick USS Indianapolis as your next one.
Never. But yes, that's amazing. I really liked Shark number 15. Sorry, I like the performance when he took that guy's leg off. I'm assuming there's sharks in that movie. I'm assuming there has to be. There has to be. If you don't know the story of the Indianapolis, look that up. Google it. It's fascinating. Or watch Jaws, and Robert Shaw will tell you. Now, back to it. Introduced me to the Coen brothers, whom I went on to have a love affair with for the rest of my life.
Same here.
It introduced me to Holly Hunter, Frances McDormand, John Goodman, one of your favorite character actors. What's Chop Top's name?
William Forsythe.
William Forsythe.
That would be Flat Top. And John, that was your introduction to John Goodman, really?
I probably had seen a couple of things, but what do you know John Goodman for before 1997? Revenge of the Nerds?
Roseanne.
When did Roseanne come out?
I'm going to check now because I don't want to sound like an idiot.
88's right around the time, I would imagine. That's okay. King Ralph introduced me to John Goodman. And that movie,
his rendition of Duke Earl.
That movie is nothing but riches. I wouldn't have known who Randall Tex Cobb was, who, by the way, ended up suing the Coen brothers, and that's a whole other story.
Oh, well, and that was the entire thing. That they I think it was Ethan Coen said he's not an actor; he's just a force of nature. I don't know if I'd work with him again.
And they didn't get along necessarily with Nicolas Cage because they had a vision, and Nicolas Cage, being who Nick Cage is, had a way he wanted to play H.I. McDunn. Now, here's the reason why at 42 that I'm picking it. After I told you all that, now looking back on it, even though it's kind of a screwball comedy, it's kind of a horror film in a sense, right? It also still touches, and this is something I want to talk about just as simple as I had a long time. As most of you know, if you listen to the show, I had my son later in life, and it was a long road through hell to finally have a child. And the fact that they're childless, looking for anything to fulfill that, still gets to me. And I kind of understand. I didn't get it then. Why would you go steal a baby? That was probably, I didn't understand it. But at 40, I kind of get it now. They had too many, so they went to steal. So that's the story. That's the plot of Raising Arizona. The first 15 minutes is before the credits even roll of explaining how he meets this person who's played by Holly Hunter, his wife, who's Elastigirl for you kids out there. And they fall in love. He is a criminal. They get together. They can't have kids. They go steal a baby. Movie starts. Correct, gentlemen? Do you know what balls of steel it took to do that in 1987? Any other filmmaker doing that? I know. I'm preaching about the Coens.
Well, no, but it was, they wanted to make a movie that was the exact opposite of their previous film, which is Blood Simple. And they did.
And they by God did. So I highly recommend it. And that's where the movie starts. That's where the credits is. It's about 15 minutes into the movie. Tells you everything you need to know. And there you go. By the way, I also didn't realize that the job he works for, which has also got a great
Roseanne came out the next year. So you're right. Raising Arizona, then Roseanne.
Emmett Walsh. See, Emmett Walsh is the coworker who's also in Blood Simple. They work at Hudsucker Industries.
I didn't know that.
By the way, since you mentioned this,
so Nicolas Cage, HM, and that's also got one of my favorite lines of all time in it. What was he wearing from The Kidnapped Father? Chad, you remember being drunk in my apartment during, I don't know, I remember this. Remember Jessica? Just laughing our asses off? I don't know. They had Yodas and shit on him. He had his damn PJs on.
Vaguely remember that.
Made me laugh for years. What was on the PJs? I don't know. They had Yodas and shit on them.
So that film also involved Sam McMurray.
It was,
Joe,
by the way, not a hit.
No.
Do you know? But it's been replayed to where it is now.
Yeah, it was. That's where audience found it. It was a video and HBO and show things.
Yeah.
And then Comedy Central did it, and Rocky Horror Picture Show around the same time. That I literally remembered see both Nick Cage, and then it would cut to Susan Sarandon and Rocky Horror Picture Show, and Susan Sarandon on our double feature tonight when in the early days of Comedy Central. But Sam McMurray's involved in that film. And have you ever heard the story about Nick Cage, them going to go get lunch, him and Nick Cage, and what happened offset when they met a female fan?
Is Sam McMurray the guy that plays Ethan Arizona, or whatever the guy?
Maybe. Yeah, to be honest, I don't know.
The biggest unpainted furniture store. It's unpainted bathroom fixture for your bathroom boudoir. Sorry. Unpainted furniture.
This is a story, and you can read this on IMDb. I'm not making this up. Sam McMurray and Nick Cage take a break. They go for lunch at this local diner. This female fan, young fan, sees them. Can't believe it's actually Nick Cage. Nick Cage finally says, "No, it's actually me. It's actually me." And she says, "Can I have an autograph?" He grabbed a cocktail napkin, took out a pen, and wrote, "You'll die tomorrow, Nick Cage." And I love that story because if I ever get a chance to meet Nick Cage and have him sign something, much like Joe Louis had John Carpenter sign something specifically.
And I will tell you that story the next time we have a convention. Please get your damn COVID shot.
Yeah, but that's what I want Nick Cage to sign. "You will die tomorrow, Nick Cage." You can look that story up. It's true, but it happened on while they were filming Raising Arizona. There you go. Fun little side story about Raising Arizona.
All right, James, go. This episode's getting long.
Don't disappoint me.
I may disappoint you because I changed after you were talking about adaptation and what impact it had on you. And like I said, I share a story. This film I saw for the first time, and y'all have probably heard me tell the story before, so you'll know what it's going to be. I used to work
Dad is dividing his fist, which is usually different. It's a different thing than he usually does with his fist. But it usually has an ing after fist.
Yeah, it's a verb. Anyway.
He turned his fist into a verb.
It's
no longer passive, James. 3 English majors just get
passive, meet aggressive. Boom.
Oh, Chad's always been passive aggressive. Anyway, I used to have a job as Joe did as well, where we were on call and all this stuff. And way back in the day, I worked on a campus right when it went completely dry. But a lot of students didn't get that memo, and a lot of students were drinking and stuff like that. And one night I actually dealt with an alcohol poisoning, and I just so happened I had somebody cover for me. There was a Blockbuster, which used to be a place you could rent movies, right next to campus. I ran over, I grabbed this film, I came back, I put it in. I couldn't sleep that night. I was all wound up. And that movie ended up being the Martin Scorsese directed Bringing Out the Dead.
There you go. And you did disappoint me, sir.
That film is not for everybody. And I'll tell you another story. I went back later to that same Blockbuster after the movie was no longer new and they didn't need 20 copies of it. And they had a copy for sale on VHS at the time. And it was $3.99. I was like, well, that's way cheap. I'll buy it. I went up to the counter to buy it, and the guy at the counter literally looked at me and went, "Really? You want this movie?" I said, "Yeah, I really enjoyed it. I thought a great soundtrack. It's very,
the movie is amazing.
It's painful.
I need to rewatch it, guys. I saw it in the theater when it came out. Did I see it with you, Chad?
No.
It is painful. So if you've never
seen... Who the hell was blowing me?
I want to make it you see that with your mom, but I don't want to do that. But I just did. Anyway.
I don't think she was there. I would have smelled the sulfur.
Oh, anyway.
And you know smell and memory.
If you've never seen the film, it's set in early 1990s New York. So this is when Times Square was still seedy and people were overdosing on drugs in public and all. It was before New York got their tourist cleanup, right?
Before Giuliani came in and cleaned up the town.
Yeah.
Cage plays Frank Pierce. It's the early 90s. There's drugs everywhere. There's prostitutes. It's all out in public. Nobody's really trying to hide it. And he basically is dealing with the fact that he hasn't – it's an opening monologue. I haven't saved anybody in weeks. And he's doing this idea of, is he doing any good? The streets are just getting worse and everything. And it follows him basically over the course of 56 hours. And there's a shortage of ambulance drivers. Nobody wants to do this. It's all terrible. You're not helping people. There's entire scenes where they go in and they're dropping people off at the hospital, and you hear the nurse saying, "We're going to clean you up and get you off drugs just so you can go do it again. That's what you always do." And so it's this idea of it's all fruitless and it's all pointless. And in the background, there's a couple different stories going on. There's a homeless man he's trying to help, and at one point turns on. There's a body that's pretty much brain dead that he begins to think he's having conversations with. He's burnt out, but he can't sleep. He's just in insomnia. It is not the same as The Machinist, but it's kind of that same thing. He has been pushed to the point.
It is better than The Machinist.
That he can't stop. There is a point when he
finally... Can we admit it now? Other than Christian Bale's performance, The Machinist is overrated. If people are really fans of Brad Anderson, his best film is Session 9. There, I said it.
No argument.
But
and
basically,
maybe a couple of the episodes of House that he directed.
That's it. Session 9. We're done.
But basically, this film is all about him searching for peace and literally heading toward a collapse, and then trying to find a redemption. And the other thing that's great about this film, directed by Scorsese, written by Paul Schrader, but the cast on it is just this great cast. John Goodman, speaking of which, we mentioned John Goodman once. Patricia Arquette is the daughter of basically the brain dead corpse, or the brain dead body. Ving Rhames is in it. Mark Anthony, Tom Sizemore. There are so many great lines. The soundtrack is all over the place, but it's really well done. There are scenes where Nicolas Cage is absolutely manic. There's a scene with him and Tom Sizemore that gets downright creepy because it's believable. Because it's believable that he has lost so much hope that you can pretty much convince him that anything is better than where he is at that moment.
Yeah, and when they're speeding, when he's on the drugs and he's speeding through New York, oh, it's beautiful.
Yeah, and I think that's part of, or one part of that is when they play Japanese Sandman and he's flipping out.
Yeah.
Need to rewatch it, guys.
It is I mean, it's not a feel good movie.
No,
it's not
but I don't think I got it when I saw it.
It ends on a good note, though.
It does, and there's so much of it that, like I said, when I saw it for the first time, and I've got the DVD over on my shelf. I've watched it a couple different times, and if you only think of Nick Cage as an over the top action star or all that, this is one. Are there some over the top scenes? Yeah, but it's also, he really conveys that he doesn't know what else to do.
Yeah.
He wants to help people. He wants to get back. He actually has this great line, and I think about it quite often. When you save somebody, it's like God has moved through you. Mm-hmm. And in that moment, you can say, I am God. And but he's not saying it egotistically. It's just this idea that he has saved somebody. And the other part of the film is he keeps seeing the people that he's lost. And specifically one particular one.
And Jay, I don't want to give too much away, but in those scenes where he's thinking about that person, it's snowing. And one of the most beautiful aspects of that is when this is Scorsese, the snow is actually falling upwards.
Yeah.
And it's beautiful. Everything about them, it's just beautifully shot.
And it was not one I was going to have on my list because a lot of people don't like it. But oddly enough,
I thought that would have been your number one pick. That's why I didn't pick it.
Oddly enough, and I told my story about the Blockbuster guy not believing I wanted to buy it, but it has grown in appreciation. The professional critics' overall score of it is 72% on Rotten Tomatoes. The audience score is 70%. Now, that may not seem overly high, but it's pretty good considering the audience and the critics are pretty close together. But it is not – it's a hard film. I can't tell you when you should watch it. I can't tell you, if you're having a bad day, watch this. It'll make you feel like your day's not that bad.
Yeah.
Or you're having too good a day. Watch this. It'll bring you down. I don't know when – but I can tell you.
I'll tell you when you should watch it. You should do a double feature of that and Mother Jugs and Speed.
Oh, my God.
No. And stop.
And I think I'm going to give the kids some vodka, some Benadryl, and start about 8 o'clock.
Stop halfway through. I'll tell you exactly when to Joe's right. But you need to play Mother Jugs and Speed right in the middle. And I'll tell you when you need to start it.
Okay.
Stop bringing out the dead right after I Be Bangin' dies. Now, you'll know when that is in the movie because literally the line is, I be banging, come back to us. Because it's at stop the movie then, put in Mother Jugs and Speed, watch Mother Jugs and Speed and then come back and watch the rest of it.
And if you're a fan of Dallas and Larry Hagman and J.R. Ewing, just get a whole new taste of what that was like with Larry Hagman.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But anyway,
and how that one scene was actually mirrored something that happened really later on.
Good story.
Anyway.
Yeah.
Anyway, Bring Out the Dead is a very heavy movie, but it is one that I go back to, and it is one that people who say Cage never really acted, I watch.
You can't say that without watching, especially the three that we mentioned and the one I'm getting ready to mention. But yeah, no, I didn't. Bringing Out the Dead was going to be one of my top picks, but I figured James would bring it up because that's one of those ones that we've had numerous conversations about.
Oh, I love Bring Out the Dead.
As do I.
I just can't tell you when you should watch it.
Go, Chad. Go.
So this was my replacement for Bringing Out the Dead. This was Nicolas Cage playing a purely great role in just his acting, his dramatic turn. Matchstick Men.
That was on my list. Good. I'm glad you did it.
Yeah,
that was the one I did.
I did. Bringing Out. That's a good Ridley Scott film.
It really is, and it's largely forgotten, which is a shame.
I agree.
He played Roy.
Sam Rockwell performance.
Yeah, and Sam Rockwell is another one of those. He's one of my favorite actors. Period. Honestly, any movie he does, I can watch and enjoy. Like that really bad one that he did with Anna Kendrick and written by Max Landis.
I saw it too. Well, Christy actually enjoyed parts of it.
I enjoy him.
Yeah,
and
he's fun.
He's fun. So it's worth watching.
Great movie I love called The Way, Way Back.
Yeah, and there's another one, Better Living Through Chemistry.
I've not seen that.
If you haven't seen that, check out Sam Rockwell. But we're talking about Nicolas Cage. We'll do a whole other episode about Sam Rockwell. Directed by Ridley Scott, written by Nick and Ted Griffin. It's basically Nicolas Cage plays a hypochondriac OCD con man. Sam Rockwell's his right-hand man, and he swindles people out of money. Even through his issues, he has to close the door 3 times. He only eats tuna out of a can, things like this. He has at one point in time, he has one of his manic episodes and he has to comb his entire carpet. It's fun watching Nicolas Cage do this performance. And then he finds out he has a daughter. That's all I'm going to say. Roger Ebert wrote of the role, and I want to have a whole episode. We'll never do this, of all the shit that Roger Ebert said was great and how wrong he was. Did you all know he said Spawn was a great movie?
No, but why Spawn?
I don't know. I just read it the other day, and he said the visual effects in Spawn were visionary.
Spawn? That's the hill he wanted to die on.
That's the hill he wanted to die. And there are many examples of Roger Ebert praising shitty movies. And that's the only one I want.
We need to do that as a bonehead fun size.
Yeah. So Roger Ebert wrote of the role, speaking specifically of Nicolas Cage. He has a kind of raging zeal that possesses his characters. When another actor would be overacting, is with Cage a kind of fearsome intensity, which I think, in all fairness, captures Nicolas Cage to a T. But Nicolas Cage, as I mentioned earlier, he does feel that this movie is largely forgotten, but he did admit that he had a lot of fun with this role, and Ridley Scott let him play with the role. But also Ridley Scott had his vision for what this movie was going to be. And Nicolas Cage even says this about working with directors. He will try something, but the ultimate say in it is the director. It's the director's vision, which you got to respect. Yeah, you got to respect Nicolas Cage in regards to that. Is he will try his damnedest to do something off the wall, but if in the end, if the director thinks maybe we should try it a different way, he will listen. But no, if you haven't seen Matchstick Men, again, it's one of those obscure And I hate to say that it's obscure because it is an amazingly good film.
And I don't remember it being a box office bomb. I just don't think I think you're right. Nobody remembers it.
No, it wasn't. It did fair to middling.
$67 million off of a $60 million budget.
Yeah, it was fair. It was a fair to middling success,
film, but nobody remembers it.
But it just kind of went the way, there was and I believe Nicolas Cage might have been nominated for an Oscar, or Sam Rockwell might have been for this movie.
Don't remember.
But and in fact, if I'm not mistaken, I think he was nominated and he lost to Sean Penn for Mystic River. You all can check me on that. But no, Matchstick Men is a great film. If you haven't seen it, go check it out. It's just watching his progression from mentally broken man to finding some kind of new lease on life with a new perspective. It's an amazing watch. Joe, go ahead.
Turn me off of mute. So what I was going to pick is another one of those famous films that not only gives us one of, who is it again we're talking about? Oh yeah, that's right. Nicolas Cage, his greatest performance.
Did you literally forget, or was that your way of being coy?
I was actually trying to kill time to figure out what my second sentence was.
Okay. Well, I hope I just helped.
No, because now I kind of forgot, but I'm back to it. As much as I love Hard Boiled and The Killers, this is actually my favorite John Woo masterpiece.
I'm glad you brought it up. It's not the one I thought you were going to do, but go ahead.
Love Face Off.
I love Face Off too.
I think Face Off is the last best big budget action film before CGI took over. Google it, gentlemen. Okay. And go back and look. Now, when you do, you'll see that several of the shots, I don't think that's Nicolas Cage and John Travolta flying off that boat. That's probably what we call back in the day stunt doubles.
Stunt doubles, yeah.
They didn't paste their faces on them. But to me, it is so batshit crazy. It was a huge hit. I saw it in the summer in Hazard, Kentucky with the lady I was dating who ended up in the emergency room later that night. And a friend of mine came along. And he said, hey, we just dropped her off. It's already 1 a.m. Do you mind driving me to this guy's house so I can pay him? I didn't know it was a drug dealer's house. I didn't know. There's more to this story than I'm not going to tell you right now.
The lead of what the hell happened at the hospital.
Oh,
I think I know, but yeah,
she had some sort of cyst bust. Do we really want to get into that? And that's a long time ago. She married,
let's talk about somebody ripping Nicolas Cage's face off.
And so it's ridiculous. And they even have a throw. So John Travolta and Nicolas Cage, put them side by side. One's taller, one's chunkier than the other one.
Oh yeah.
How do you just put their face on the other one and make it work? And there's even a throwaway line, if you guys remember the movie, CCH Pounder, another great character actor.
Yeah.
She's fantastic. Demon Knight. But she even says, height's negligible. Does anybody remember that?
San Diego.
What'd you say?
No, nothing. Never mind. That's not Cheech Pounder. Go ahead.
CCH Pounder.
Yeah.
So she says, height's negligible. Really? Is it negligible? But we don't give a shit. He plays Castor Troy, but he also plays that's what I was actually looking up right before him was John Travolta's character's name. I couldn't remember.
And while you look that up, that was the cool thing about this is they actually, they transfer parts and they actually studied one another.
They spent 2 weeks together before they actually shot the movie. Did you guys know that?
Yeah. I knew that. And so they could catch each other's mannerisms. And in my opinion, I love John Travolta, but Nicolas Cage really nailed it.
Oh, they nail each other. I truly do believe that. So John Travolta plays Sean Archer. He's an FBI, blah, 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 blah. And Castor Troy is the villain played by Nicolas Cage. And he killed his son at one time, and he's trying to chase him down and get him back. And Joan Allen plays John Travolta's wife. It has a stellar cast. Gina Gershon. John Carroll Lynch is in this. I completely forgot. Margaret Cho.
All right, stop talking.
Why?
John Travolta is a CIA agent.
CIA? I said FBI. I'm sorry.
FBI. Either way. No, FBI, CIA. He kind of plays a spy.
Yeah.
Named Archer.
Yeah. It's Sean Archer. I'm sure they stole it from it. I'm sure they stole it. They had to have.
Go ahead, Joe.
They had to have. Anyway, doesn't matter. So they get this. He finally catches him, but Castor Troy is in a coma, so they don't. There's a bomb planted somewhere. It's a fucking MacGuffin. We did a whole episode on a MacGuffin.
Yes.
They got to find the bomb. They switch faces so he can go deep undercover as Castor Troy. Well, Castor Troy wakes up, gets out of the hospital, steals John Travolta's face by the doctor played by Colin Feore. I know this sounds crazy. It is so much fun. It holds up today, gentlemen. I watched it last year. It is just as much fun as it was when I saw it in the 90s.
Yeah, you know, there's two things in that movie that I think are, that genuinely entertained me. And that has to be the 5 or 10 minutes where Nicolas Cage actually doesn't have a face.
Yep.
And he's trying to smoke a cigarette.
Yep. Really quick, I think a lot of people have seen this movie. I don't want to belabor the point. I love the fact that they get to play each other and they try to get each other's mannerisms. My story about Nicolas Cage is going to be broke down into a story I heard John Travolta tell in an interview once.
Okay.
They were sitting around this 2 weeks they were together, and they were talking about all the things they like, and he's doing his impersonation of Nicolas Cage, and like, yeah, and blah, blah, blah. He's like, yeah, I like that too. Yeah, I like that too. And Nicolas Cage all of a sudden blurts out, have you ever woke up in the morning and just go, I want to buy a nice piece of glass? And John said, no, never have done that. And it stopped right there. Which reminds me, if you guys love this episode, check out Chris Alexander episode of Fangoria that we've done earlier, who has one of the best Nicolas Cage stories of all. What?
Just take it away.
Just take it away.
Take it away.
Take it away.
The other scene that I
are you into voodoo? It's Vadu. He said Vadu, right?
Vadu.
Yeah.
Take it away.
I love that whole movie. I do. It is nonstop fun. But the other scene that I like to talk, and again, if you haven't seen Face Off, what's wrong with you? Watch it. But I'm going to mention close to the end, where they're in their final battle, and John Travolta takes that piece of glass, and then John Travolta or Nicolas Cage stops him. That whole scene, and Nicolas Cage's face as he does what he does to John Travolta. Oh, it gets me every time.
Well, and it's great acting. So John Travolta shot some of his scenes first, and then they showed some of it to Nicolas Cage. It's another story. He shot the opening scene with his son getting shot on the carousel. That was actually shot before Nicolas Cage got there, and he saw the footage. And he said he wrote a letter to Travolta saying, "You've raised it to another level. I see what we're doing. We're going to raise this to another level." Yeah. And that's what they do. There's a ton of heart in the movie, too. I know it sounds ridiculous, and the plot is ridiculous, but the characters are fairly three-dimensional, and you do care. And it helps that Joan Allen, a great actress, plays his wife and grounds a lot of it. And he does have a dead son, and he has a vendetta, and he has a daughter he has to save. And it sounds trivial, but they do a good job of making it three-dimensional and grounded, and you care, and you be invested in these characters.
Can I just state
the guy that plays his brother? I have no idea. Is also a fantastic actor. Yeah. I don't know what happened.
I just want to state this one thing about this: best use of Somewhere Over the Rainbow.
Yeah, he originally John Woo wanted the actual, and they couldn't afford it. The actual Judy Garland singing it. Yeah, they couldn't afford it.
That is the best use of that song.
The Killers is probably John Woo's best film, but this is the one I would pop in and.
Yeah.
I just love it. Face Off. Sorry. He actually go on to work with him again in Wind Talkers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. All right, gentlemen, this is running long. What's our third one?
James, go.
I changed my mind again. I was going to coin flip between these two, but I think I'm
going to I've changed my mind now twice.
If you've ever sat down and you watched the Jennifer Lawrence film Winter's Bone, and you went, this film's way too upbeat for me. I need to watch a film that makes me realize all human beings are inherently terrible terrible things. I would recommend you check out David Gordon Green directing Nicolas Cage in the film Joe.
I haven't seen it. It was named after me.
Joe it's based on a book that is by Larry Brown. If you don't know Larry Brown has passed away. He died in his 50s, not too long ago. But he's been compared to Cormac McCarthy. Now, if you're familiar with Cormac McCarthy doesn't write upbeat, happy stories. Neither did Larry Brown. It stars Nicolas Cage and Ty Sheridan, and directed by David Gordon Green. It was considered a box office flop. It was only made on a budget of $4 million, but it only made $2.3 million back initially. Though it was heavily praised for David Gordon Green's direction and Nicolas Cage's performance. This is not a film where Nicolas Cage is over the top, and if you like Mandy, you should watch this. There's no supernatural in this. There's nothing like that. It is a drama. Nick Cage plays Joe. Shocker. Nick Cage plays Joe. He's a foreman for a Texas tree poisoning company. Basically, if there's an area where they can't have trees, there's actually an area like this on my parents' farms where the major power lines are, and they poison the trees once every 5 years so they don't grow. And that's what they do. There is a kid named Gary. Gary is 15. Gary is in poverty. Gary doesn't have food, and he shows up and he says, "Hey, is there any work I can do? Can I?" And Joe finally says, "I'll give you something to do," and he gives him a job. Gary's father is an alcoholic, an abusive alcoholic who basically wants to beat him up and take his money. Joe starts to kind of try to keep an eye out on him, lets him come back to do some more off the record work. Meanwhile, there's this kind of criminal in town, Willie, who is he's a rapist. He's a drunk. These are terrible people living in poverty, doing whatever it takes to get by. There's bar scenes. These people are not going out to nice dinners. And basically at the end of it, Joe realizes Joe himself is an ex-con. He has a violent history. He's trying to get beyond that. He's trying to live a normal life. But he starts to realize that basically Gary is also trying to watch out for his younger sister. And there's a point where his younger sister is almost raped. And Joe basically says, we can't let this happen. So if you've seen Mandy, this is the non-supernatural version of that. But it is very layered. It is very heavy. It is very sad. And that's why I compare it to Winter's Bone. Joe and I think watch Winter's Bone together. And Winter's Bone has a certain logic. If you come from certain areas, it's not turn them in. It's, I just need what I need for my family.
Yeah, it's a very rural film. I don't know how else to put it, but I think rural is the best way. It's rural.
Mind your business. Do what you got to do.
Yeah.
Go from there.
He got shot. He was into something he shouldn't have been into.
Yeah. Yep. That's
very much a back home. That's in Eastern Kentucky or Western Kentucky. It's probably a small town thing. If someone was shot, well, what were they doing that they shouldn't have been doing?
Shouldn't have been doing. And that's pretty much the same logic that runs through Joe, but Joe ends up very bleak. It's not a. You've got people.
David Gordon Green has directed comedies.
Well, and that was the one thing.
Halloween,
which is pretty damn good.
Yep, except for that one scene.
If you,
the explanation.
No, the doctor.
That's what I'm saying. Of why you let him out. Yeah.
You
had to have a reason. That's the one lacking thing of how did he get out.
But
that movie's very grand. I'm sorry, we could do a whole episode on that. Sorry.
Yeah.
But if you've never seen Joe and you like David Gordon Green or you like Nicolas Cage, you need to see it now. It again, I can't tell you when you should watch it. It's heavy, it's dark, it's bleak, and yes, they don't stop all the evil in the world. There are still people out there that are pedophiles and all that stuff, and that's not what this film's about. It's about one person trying to do right, but everything's wrong, and there's nothing that can be done about it. And there's violence, and at the end of the day, you wonder what's going to happen to the kid because things are complicated and things are heavy. And again, this movie doesn't have a ton of quote unquote supernatural Nick Cage freak out scenes. And I love Mandy, and Mandy almost made this list because I love Mandy that much. That being said, Joe is a very different type of film. It's very much a straight up drama, but it's a drama that looks at poverty. And by the way, one of the characters is actually played by an actress named Heather Kafka. So it's even Kafka-esque. Look it up. I'm not making it up.
Metamorphosis is complete, sir. Ready? Come.
All right. So I did my quirky role. I did my serious role. Now I'm going to do my fun role. And if Joe doesn't pick what I think he's going to pick for his last one, I want to talk about my favorite role at the end here.
Do it now.
No,
you're not going to pick. You are not going to pick when I'm picking for my third.
We'll see. I want to pick my fun role. And that is Big Daddy. From Kick-Ass.
I wanted to, but I thought one of you all would get it.
I had to do Big Daddy from Kick-Ass.
Oh, child.
Oh, child.
Right?
Yeah. Directed by Matthew Vaughn, written by Jane Goldman and Matthew Vaughn, based on the comic book Kick-Ass. It's essentially about a teenager who has no superpowers whatsoever. Superheroes don't exist, but he puts on a wetsuit and starts fighting crime. And he ends up teaming up with Hit Girl and Big Daddy, a father-son duo who fight crime. And Nicolas Cage obviously takes a lot of his role from Adam West from the original 1960s Batman, which is very obvious when he does this role. And it is so much fun. He is so weirdly kooky in this movie. It's just entertaining from moment to end. I pulled a quote from him about working on this movie from movies.com. Whoever got the name of that website should be kissed on the mouth. Movies.com. Yeah. There was a kind of playful creativity to the experience of making Kick-Ass that I enjoy thoroughly, particularly because of Matthew Vaughn's direction and his willingness to go in these pretty unusual waters. He was open to the idea of me channeling Adam West to play Big Daddy. I can't think of another director who would allow that. But at the same time, he was really the captain of his own ship. And honestly, as great as the Jim Carrey is as an actor, he's one of my favorites. His fault, he was the replacement for Big Daddy in Kick-Ass 2, and it just did not fit.
Well, I think the problem with Kick-Ass 2 is there's no Matthew Vaughn.
There's no Matthew Vaughn, exactly. But also, too, I just don't think Jim Carrey's role in that would have matched Nicolas Cage's Big Daddy anywhere close to it. And the one thing, as crazy as he is in that film, the one scene that honestly I have trouble watching is honestly his final scene, his death scene, where he is yelling the instructions to, and by the way, spoilers, people, sorry, but this is what this podcast is, when he's yelling the directions to his daughter while he is literally burning alive.
Yeah, the second movie doesn't.
It does not, like and it tears at you. But at the same time, you are enjoying the hell out of watching this, and Nicolas Cage just screaming in agony.
Because he's screaming in pain
at the top of his lungs, trying to help his daughter. It is phenomenal. And again, every one of my picks proves how great a Nicolas Cage is, and it still is not. I'm going to go on to Joe. Joe, you pick your last one. Does not still capture Nicolas Cage at his finest.
Well, I had the two huge ones. I'm going to read a few quotes from the one I'm going to pick. Okay. I don't know that this is my favorite or my best, but damn, it's a Nicolas Cage role. Early test screenings for this film did not go well. Estimated that 80 people walked out of the first one and 100 in the next. The film was completed one day before it debuted at the 90 Cannes Film Festival. 2,400 seat. Bernardo Bertolucci was the one who announced the movie is winning the Palme d'Or at the award ceremony, and the boos almost drowned out the cheers with the film because Roger Ebert, Chad, bringing this back around 360, leading the vocal detractors. There was a prevailing mood that the media was hoping that, well, David Lynch would fail. Wild at heart.
Wild at heart. I didn't think you were going that way. I thought you were going another way. But
I told you would not pick my third one.
Okay.
Now, the issue, so if you've ever seen, so I'm going to assume this is the one, kind of like Joe, and what was the one we talked about earlier, Red Rock West, that probably a lot of our viewers haven't seen.
Right.
Probably, unless you're a huge Lynch fan, haven't seen Wild at Heart. Wild at Heart is a dirty movie. And I don't mean that as in there's a lot of sex. It's just a grimy, dirty movie. Mm-hmm. I remember watching it probably 91, 92 when I should have had no business watching it. Mm-hmm. I was a latchkey child, and God bless it. It turned me into the man I am today. Let's take a pause for that.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I got to kill these crickets.
Right. Let's take a pause for that for a second. Wild at Heart just jarred me. And it has stayed with me. It's probably the first David Lynch film I saw. Maybe, you know what? I'd probably had seen Dune, or at least most of Dune, but I didn't know, because that's not the same as the rest of the David Lynch filmography, right? It's just like The Elephant Man or A Straight Story. They seem out of place. I love both of those movies, but they're out of place with the rest of what we think of when we think of Lynchian, when we think of Lynch films. Wild at Heart won the Palme d'Or at the Cannes Film Festival.
I did not know it won that. That is crazy.
What I think is fascinating that the boos were louder than the cheers.
I wonder
because it's a very divisive film.
Was David Lynch there to accept the award?
I don't know.
I would.
Defoe talks about the movie, and I'm going to talk about the little movie before we get back to Nicolas Cage a little bit, as how fascinating it was to work with Lynch and how to try to get the character, because he plays a nasty kind of hit man who's he's just awful in that movie. And he got it through the teeth that Lynch wanted him to wear, and that's how he built the character out. And Nicolas Cage credits Lynch from curing him of the method. And what I mean by that is he had been a method actor. And after this, he realized he no longer wanted to be a method actor. Then he wanted to try to grow organically through become whatever this is, these Nick Cage performances. Make sense to you too? They're not method. They're not necessarily, Nick Cage isn't method. So David Lynch started this. According to Nicolas Cage, he unleashed him to be able to do this. For example, the jacket he wears is a snakeskin jacket. That's actually Nicolas Cage. He wanted to wear it. All the singing that he does in the movie, that's his actual voice. Now, quick little bit of a summary for this. It's him and Laura Dern. They're in love. They're star-crossed lovers who families hate it. His mom hates him. Nicolas Cage plays Sailor and she plays Lula, which is completely a Lynch universe names, right, Chad?
Yep.
Some sort of fucked up 50s version of what maybe life would have been. That's complete Lynchian.
And it had that soundtrack too.
Yeah. Well, and that's probably the first time I ever listened to Chris Isaak was from the soundtrack of Wild at Heart, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to think of the famous Chris Isaak song that plays in that, but I don't know the name of it. I can play it from my head. I'm not going to start singing. Yeah, that's from Wild at Heart, which Lynch is known for great music, similar to Tarantino, great music in his films. So Laura Dern's mom hates her, played by Diane Ladd, who's actually her mom. She sets him up, and he ends up in prison, and he gets out of prison, and they roll off together. And basically, they're avoiding a series of hitmen and other folks, some of them played by Harry Dean Stanton, William Dafoe, Crispin Glover's in it as well. And to stop them because she wants to kill Sailor because she thinks her daughter can do better, that he's horrible. And that's what the movie's about. And their cross-country duel too, they're going to Vegas. And them reuniting their love affair. It has a downbeat ending. It's kind of lifts up because it doesn't quite work out well you can imagine for Lynch. A lot of people die. But if you're a Lynch fan and you've never seen Wild at Heart, you're doing yourself a disservice. If you love Twin Peaks, then you should watch Wild at Heart, because to me, Wild at Heart, Twin Peaks, and Blue Velvet are the three that I think all are in the same universe.
Real quick, by the way, for our listeners, if you don't know who David Lynch is, you may know him more as the voice of the bartender Gus.
I knew he was going to do it. I knew it.
Yeah.
I knew he was going to do it.
By the way, that's his actual voice. If you've never seen the Cleveland.
No, we know.
I'm talking.
He was also great on Louis. Did anybody ever watch?
He played Dahl. He played Jack Dahl
on Louis.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Well, he's the one trying to get him ready to take over for Letterman. Louis C.K. used to be a comedian who got caught up in something, and we aren't allowed to talk about him anymore.
Yeah. But but I it's one of the things that I do appreciate about the Cleveland show. We need to cast a bartender. Who do you want? I like the way. Can we get somebody that sounds like David Lynch?
Let's just get David Lynch.
You want to see if David Lynch is available? Well, let's see if he'll do it. Oh, he will? Cool.
Well, David Lynch puts himself in a lot of his movies anyway.
Yeah.
But I just, anyway, yeah, it's one of my favorite things.
I won't belabor the point, but just because of how much credit he gives David Lynch, I think Wild at Heart is important for that whole crazy, I mean, he let him go.
Yeah.
And if you watch it from that point on, I don't know, Moonstruck is another one that I think is one of those where he just goes batshit nuts. Of course, he also gets to play with Cher.
Right.
All right.
Wicked Game, by the way. Wicked Game is
Wicked Game. Thank you.
Game.
I couldn't remember Chris Isaak song.
It also has a couple other songs, but the most famous Chris Isaak song in my world ever
is Wicked Game. No, and it played on the trailer. Yeah.
I know that doesn't sound anything like Chris Isaak. People bite me.
Chris Isaak did a show on Showtime where all he did was have sex with women.
You don't sound like Chris Isaac
Google
because people bite you.
That's Chris Isaac in real life anyway. So what's the difference?
Well, I would too if I was Chris Isaac. Now,
so Joe, I'll be honest.
honorable mentions.
My honorable mention. I'm only gonna do one because it is my. And Joe, I really thought you were gonna bring this one up. It is what I think, and you all may argue with me. What I think is the best Nick Cage performance, and honestly, it's one of my. It's close to my top favorite Nicolas Cage movie, The Weatherman.
Oh yeah,
Michael Caine steals that film though.
Oh no, James! Nicolas Cage is amazing.
I tell you, The Weatherman is
It's a great movie. That's great. I'm not arguing with you, but I mean, Michael Caine. There's something about.
Let's see.
Him playing that cold.
Verbinski's two best films are The Weatherman and Rango.
Yeah, no doubt.
Followed by Mouse Hunt.
Oh yeah.
Mouse Hunt is more fun. I like Pirates of the Caribbean. I just showed it to my kid a few months ago, and I enjoyed it again. But Mouse Hunt's better.
Yeah, no, I can see that. But no, The Weatherman, Nicolas Cage and The Weatherman, I think is him.
It's fantastic.
It's fantastic. It's him holding back.
I agree.
Just watching him play. Everybody knows Nicolas Cage, the insane, manic performances. But seeing Nicolas Cage subdued, just getting gut punched every step of the way.
By everybody.
His life isn't working out. His wife isn't working out. His dad's dying. He has everything. And
his dream, successful. He thinks one thing.
Well,
Get that one thing. It'll change it all.
And the best thing.
He's completely oblivious to the fact that he's a successful guy.
Right. Yeah, completely oblivious. And, one of the best scenes is, well, why'd you start carrying a bow and arrow? Well, people start throwing milkshakes on me when I started bow and arrow.
Which is I would assume it would stop it.
It is such a bizarre, wonderful film. And I know it's bizarre in the sense of I think it's completely accessible. It's just a character study. And James, you saw it with a bunch of students and they hated your guts for it.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't know this story.
Yeah. Because they wanted an action film. They're, it's Nick Cage. And I was like, yeah, it's Nick Cage, but it's not.
It is a character study. It is literally just human intrigue. It doesn't need bells and whistles. It's just this man, this broken man, trying to live life and failing miserably. He has everything he could ever ask for, and he's just miserable. And it's honestly it's a gut punch but it has kind of a candy coated end, but it still is not a happy ending per se.
It has one of the best camel toe jokes of all time.
Forgot about it. But James is. I don't necessarily agree with James that Michael Caine steals it, but Michael Caine's performance in that movie of just playing this stone cold, straight faced, no emotion.
But I don't think he did, and he loves his son. You clearly see it in the movie. They're just two completely different people who don't have anything in common other than their father and son.
Yeah.
One is a talented author who's beloved by his country and his president, who's never, and it even says in the movie, he's never made as much money as his son has being on TV.
Right.
Yeah.
And then, Nicolas Cage is just a weatherman who constantly gets the weather wrong and has milkshakes thrown on him.
Yeah.
And it's just, if you haven't seen,
it's the Dipper. It's the day. The day's going to be the coldest. It's the Dipper. Is it the Nipper? No, it's the Nipper. I can't remember.
I'm blanking.
Anyway, it's a good movie. Watch it.
Yeah, if you haven't seen The Weatherman, in terms of the best Nicolas Cage film, in my opinion, in terms of performance, Weatherman.
James,
that's my honorable mention.
My honorable mention, real quick, Lord of War.
Ooh, that was going to be one of mine.
This is one I thought James was going to bring up. This or another one that starts with M, which is a fantastic.
I thought that wasn't been right off the bat, but I figured
James was either going to pick the M one or Lord of War. But Lord of War is a depressing film. You follow the manufacturing of a bullet. Opening, right? Till
it kills a child, if I'm not mistaken.
It kills a kid. And that's the opening of the movie, and it's downbeat. It's probably as accurate as possible about those people and how they do. These arms dealers are covered by the government because they sell to the government.
which is one of the best cold-hearted scenes I've seen on film, because he's got him dead to rights.
Yeah.
Get him dead, and he does. I'll tell you what's going to happen here in a few minutes. Somebody's going to knock on that door, and he does the entire thing. You're going to get an accommodation for finally catching me.
Yep.
And then they're going to escort you out, and then they're going to escort me out.
Yep.
And it's just a cold, hard.
That's what happens.
Yeah.
And what's really interesting about it, Joe, I don't know if you remember this, but we worked with somebody, or I worked more directly.
I do. I remember the story
where she would, at the opening credits, she would not let her husband finish watching the film. She once that bullet kills that child, I will not watch a film that glorifies this. And to me, it doesn't glorify it.
It doesn't glorify it at all.
In fact, it shocks you and tells you what you're about to watch.
Yeah.
And these things happen daily, folks.
Yeah, and it is. I agree. It is an underrated Nick Cage film. It was one that was actually going to be higher on my list, but I coin flipped as we talked because I was like, what about this one?
I could have been here all day. Yeah, we could have done two-parter. I don't know that we need to, but we could have done a two-parter on it. All right, James.
I think what we've already done is a two-parter.
Yeah. Honorable mention.
Honorable mention, since you took that one, I'm going to actually bring up one. Lord of War, Port of Call, New Orleans. Not Lord of War, sorry. Bad Lieutenant.
That was the one. That was another one that I wanted to do that I was.
I thought James was going to bring this one up, and so yeah.
Bad Lieutenant.
I almost did that instead of.
I know. I did some more research on this one, and I'm more fascinated by it now. So here's the 2-second version of the plot. He plays a cop. Hurricane Katrina happens. There's a prisoner that wasn't transferred that should have been. He ends up saving the prisoner. He hurts his back. He starts doing Vicodin to deal with that. Jump 6 months forward, he's now addicted to painkillers. He's doing cocaine. He's doing drugs, whatever he can get his hands on. He's messing with prostitutes. He's everything's going downhill, and it jumps forward in time again. There's an immigrant plot. Brad Dourif is in this. It's a great film, and that it's completely bleak. I mean,
it's directed by Werner Herzog, the great German director. Aguirre, Wrath of God.
Yeah,
but
it's Carl though.
Jack Reacher.
Jack Reacher. He's a great character. Or the crazy German bastard for no reason. You have why is he in The Mandalorian? Why is this crazy? Would you like it was not a beverage.
Oh my God! But next
to libation.
But you all got to agree. Next to Baby Yoda, he's got the most popular.
Oh man, I want him. They have the Baby Yoda toy. I want a plush Werner Herzog from Mandalorian that I can push.
That you pull the string and says, "Would you like a libation?"
No, but James, I got to. So guys, I got to tell you. So I'd never seen Bad Lieutenant Port of Saint.
Really?
I had not seen it till a month ago.
Oh, you saw it? Okay.
I saw it. I loved it. Nicolas Cage crazy, and that there are the weird aspects of it, like typical Werner Herzog film. Where he goes for some reason it goes into the point of view of the iguana and the crocodile or alligator for some reason.
I don't remember any of that, but
it goes batshit crazy. But I don't know. And James, I don't know if you remember it. Joe, you probably don't remember that well. There is one part of that movie, about 5 minutes, where for some reason Nicolas Cage develops an accent.
I don't remember that.
He goes into the police department and starts talking to him, and he starts talking like this, and he goes, and so you just don't understand. It's just, you got to do this, and I got to get this done, and he talks like this for 5 minutes, and then all of a sudden he goes back to normal, and I'm like, what the hell did that accent come from, people?
It's the thing that took me out of Color Out of Space. As much as I enjoyed it, it was just
I haven't seen it yet.
His performance is,
it's
great when it's confined.
But no, he had, and then also he just started talking like this. I just got to get this figured out. And he kind of went Jimmy Stewart, and I just don't know why he talked like this.
Well, so I want to flesh this out just briefly because it's
a whole fifth movie here, aren't you?
Well,
there he is. He's just doing a whole other movie talking about Port of St. Orleans, and now I'm going to talk like this all day tomorrow, and I can't stop myself.
Do you know how this
Mr. Carter? Potter?
Yeah, I was going to say it's Cotter. Mr. Cotter taught John Travolta in Face Off.
He taught him how to love.
Oh my
Mr.
God,
Cotter.
Cotter.
I know how to love.
Hold on, let me do it in that voice. Oh my God, Mr. Cotter.
Do you know how this connects to the original Bad Lieutenant?
Yeah, they own the title. The producers own the title.
But actually, yeah, and Herzog didn't want to use it.
No, he said the only way he'd do it is if you'd like put Port of Call New Orleans.
Yeah. And so his quote at the time was, I battled against the title when it was getting ready to come out from the first moment on, and finally said, I can live with it. I have no problem with it all. The title is probably a mistake, but so be it. But do you know what Abel Ferrara's response was?
No.
Oh.
He directed the original Bad Lieutenant, which is an NC-17. And if you ever wanted to look at Harvey Keitel's penis or see him masturbate while two girls are in a car, the original Bad Lieutenant is the movie for you.
Well, here, I'll just read this real quickly. This is a great way to wind up our Nick Cage episode. Abel Ferrara, director of the 1992 film, has been quoted by various media outlets as being very angry about the film. When it was first announced, Ferrara was quoted as saying, quote, as far as remakes go, I wish these people die in hell. I hope they're all in the same streetcar and it blows the hell up. When asked later for his response to Ferrara's statements, Herzog said that he does not even know who he is. I've never seen a film by him. I have no idea who he is. At a press conference at the Venice Film Festival after the film premiere, Herzog said to Ferrara, I would like to meet this man. And I have a feeling that if we met and talked, perhaps over a bottle of whiskey, would you like a libation?
Would you like a libation? Look it up.
I should add, I think we would straighten everything out. By the 2018, so 2 years ago, Newcastle International Film Festival, Ferrara said that he had eventually met Herzog and they had made peace. But I do love that. I hope they're all on the same streetcar and it blows the hell up.
I love the fact that Werner Herzog was trying to, and not that the director of Miss 45 doesn't need to be heard. Actually, he directed an underappreciated film that we may get to later. If we could do remakes that bomb that aren't terrible, his version of The Body Snatchers is not bad. Problem is that Lloyd Kaufman, sorry, wrong Kaufman. Philip Kaufman did the Invasion of the Body Snatchers in '78, and Don Siegel did it in the '50s, and those two movies are just fantastic. Yeah. Two totally different, like The Thing and The Thing from Another World and The Thing. They're just two fantastic films that are kind of the same but different.
Yeah. But anyway, so Port of Call, New Orleans, if you've not seen it, it is a cop gone bad, drugs and all of that stuff. And it's
not as depressing as the Abel Ferrara version.
Oh, no. But it also does have less views of people's genitalia.
Harvey Keitel's genitalia, which is a negative in this reviewer's eye. Harvey Keitel, genitalia. Anybody got anything else?
That's been Nick Cage. If you've not seen any of those movies, start with those, but he's got plenty to watch.
Also, if you love Nick Cage, please listen to our Patrick Lussier episode where he talks about working with him in Drive Angry, which is another performance that we really like. And he tells some good stories about trying to talk him out of doing actual tattoo work on his head. Mm-hmm. Remember?
Yes. Actually, you need to watch that one. You need to watch the. You just said it earlier.
Chris Alexander.
Chris Alexander
tells the best story, best Nicolas Cage.
About having to interview him and how much fun it was to interview him. And
going to his private island off of Paradise Island. Yes, in the Bahamas.
So you need to watch those episodes because Nick Cage is, and I don't say this sarcastically, he really is a national treasure. I would watch that man in just about anything, including National Treasure.
And notice that did not make our list.
No,
actually, and I know you said something about it, but I prefer. I think I like National Treasure. Okay, it's historically inaccurate, whatever. But I almost think Sorcerer's Apprentice is better than National Treasure 2. There, I said it.
It's just, my point was Sorcerer's Apprentice isn't a terrible movie. It's just a complete waste of Nicolas Cage.
Alfred Molina is pretty good though as a villain.
Alfred Molina is great in anything.
On that note,
thank you so much for tuning in. Please share our episode. We noticed that there's a 40 or 50 of you that tune in real quick. Well, if you 40 or 50 met 40 or 50 more and they met 40 or 50 more, before you know it, we'd be in the double digits.
Also, because Bonehead Weekly is a pyramid scheme.
Yeah. Also, every blue moon we post.
But it's not money. We're literally trying to build fucking pyramids. We're
no, we also occasionally will post.
Hey, I'm damn near determined that a pyramid can be a trapezoid.
I don't know enough about geography.
We also occasionally will post surveys about what you would like to see more of, or less of, etc. on Twitter and whatnot. So you probably also follow us there at Bonehead Weekly.
Sounds good. Thank you all so much. We got a big guest for you next week.
Bye-bye. No, bye-bye.